probably nothing extremely imminent, but again, I would say probably by later this month, early December, we'll really see this movement kind of intensify and heighten around the transition. As far as the president and his administration is concerned, we do know that they have been complying with the deadlines that are needed to mark a transition of power. So they are doing the things that they need to do, contrary to some of the things that the president has said in the past about maybe not necessarily adhering to that. And of course, we do know that the president may not necessarily concede, even if we do hear from President-elect Biden tonight. But the Biden campaign has made clear that, the president, Donald Trump, that is, does not decide an election, that it's the American people who do that. And so they do intend to move forward.
That's very interesting information, Nicole, that we have heard this rhetoric from the president that he doesn't intend to concede, that he intends to fight it, but to know that inside the White House, they are doing all the things that are responsible for that peaceful transition of power, which we now expect is going to take place as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris become the next administration there in Washington. Actually, you can see Black Lives Matter Plaza and Philadelphia, one of the cities that really were instrumental in handing Biden that electoral win. Before I let you go, Nicole, in addition to every presidential election being a moment of history, there is especially some historic relevance with Kamala Harris becoming the first female vice president, the first person of color, a Black American, an Asian American, to hold that office. I want to give you an opportunity, some space to talk about what you're hearing on that front and any other reflections you have.
Well, I can tell you, talking to at least two people who are close to the senator and people who have been advocating for this moment, they said that they, simply broke down in tears. I actually had one person call me up on the phone crying, a pretty prominent Democratic strategist who really has been advocating for a woman of color to be on the ticket. And when that moment came, that was a moment of pride, but this certainly kind of takes it to a new level. And I think, look, when you look at the history of the moment, part of it is just, I think, especially among those in the African-American community, a sense of she's one of us. We've already seen her sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, tweet out calling her Madam Vice President, and her alma mater, Howard University. Anybody who's gone to Howard knows their slogan is HU, and so they tweeted that out in all caps. I mean, it's just a moment of pride for people who've gone to historically Black colleges and universities, or who are in a Black Greek organization, but also too for the South Asian community. This is such a huge moment as well, and even around the other side of the globe, in India. And also, let's not forget Senator Harris, is part Jamaican. So even for her Jamaican ancestry too, when we saw this outpouring of support for her when she was named to the ticket. And so now we're kind of seeing some of that echoed again in this moment. But I think it's also important to point out that we've ever had the second Catholic president. We've ever had the first president from Delaware. His wife, Dr. Jill Biden, has said she will continue to resume teaching, which I don't know that we've seen a first lady before actually hold a day job. Outside Emhoff, he will now become the second gentleman and the first Jewish second spouse, if you will. So there's a lot of history with that ticket, and that's also being recognized on this day.
Absolutely.
Last week, there was another large hotel chain that 18,000 were let go.
I haven't seen any jobs that are even close to what I was making.
We're trying to keep things as normal for our kids. I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son.
And I see every day people losing their homes, having to leave Las Vegas.
If I have to start over somewhere else, I have to start over.
Download the free CBS News app to watch.
The mayor, the city council, everything's run by a woman.
Pine Lake is predominantly white, but the surrounding area is 90% Black. Somebody's going to get pulled over.
Why are most of the people in the courtroom black? Most of the people in Pine Lake are white.
Download the free CBS News app to watch. It's not just left and right.
What are the most vulnerable issues for both President Trump and for Joe Biden?
It's not just wrong and right.
What is the pitch to voters?
The biggest pitch is going to be the economy.
Our politics don't have to divide us. They can unite us.
Healthcare is an animating issue for voters.
This is why we're here, to help make sense of the most important issues in America.
Thank you for helping to bring clarity on election night.
Watch Red and Blue, weeknights at 5 on CBSN.
Women felt incandescent rage.
What is being described as the biggest political upset in history.
She lost to a candidate who is known for saying sexist things about women.
Maybe we weren't ready for a woman yet.
We've been monitoring the Women's March coming out of Washington.
The loudest, boldest, most powerful voices coming out of Capitol Hill were the voices of women.
There's a cultural war happening.
Black lives is a woman's issue.
We need a social movement that can think about the logics of race and gender simultaneously. I think of saying to my daughter who's 4, look at Kamala Harris, that could be you.
I'm Lana Zach. Thank you so much for joining me today. CBS News has now projected that former Vice President Joe Biden will be the 46th president. The CBS News decision does determine that Joe Biden has the electoral votes he needs and that mathematically President Trump is unable to win the race. After days of counting, here's a look at the votes in Pennsylvania. That state and its 20 electoral votes put Biden over the 270 needed to secure the presidency. President-elect Biden has been urging calm over the past few days as the vote totals were tabulated. Given the large number of mail-in ballots from Biden supporters, the former vice president initially trailed President Trump on Election Day. But now that millions of mail-in votes have been fairly counted, Biden is over the top in both electoral votes and popular votes. Biden will become the 4th vice president to be elected president. He is also the 11th man to defeat an incumbent president. His running mate, meanwhile, Kamala Harris, becomes known in history as the country's first female vice president, also the first of Black and Asian American heritage. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are expected to address the nation later this evening, and of course, we will bring that to you live. In the meantime, we are receiving a statement from Joe Biden saying, quote, I am honored and humbled by the trust the American people have placed in me and in Vice President-elect Harris. In the face of unprecedented obstacles, a record number of Americans voted, proving once again that democracy beats deep in the heart of America. With the campaign over, it is time to put the anger and the harsh rhetoric behind us and come together as a nation. It's time for America to unite and to heal. We are the United States of America, and there's nothing we can't do if we do it together. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign is also responding in a statement, quote, beginning Monday, our campaign will start prosecuting our case in court to ensure election laws are fully upheld and the rightful winner is seated. The American people are entitled to an honest election. That means counting all legal ballots and not counting any illegal ballots. For more on this now, I want to bring in CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, you're in Biden's hometown. What is it like where you are right now?
Hi, well, earlier when I spoke to you, we were in Philadelphia. We got in the car, headed down to Wilmington, about an hour's drive. And on the way into Wilmington, there are people gathered on the street corners holding signs for the former vice president, now called the president-elect. There is a very jubilant atmosphere here, very celebratory. People are starting to come in. As you can see behind me is where Biden and Harris will give a speech tonight, and there will be a drive-in, more cars coming in, and people are out and about and excited to be here for the president-elect's speech tonight. Wilmington, as you mentioned, has been obviously it's the home where Biden lives, but in the age of COVID, it has become kind of another campaign headquarters. Here at the Chase Center is where Biden has been getting briefings on the coronavirus pandemic. It is a place that we reporters have been often throughout the past few months of the campaign, as it has been kind of centered here. And so this is a place where he will give his speech tonight, now that he is officially the president-elect.
I'm glad that you pointed out how you actually got there, because we have been on wall-to-wall coverage since learning the news. And when we started off, you were in Philadelphia. You're there now in Delaware. And both states actually are states that the president-elect has claimed at times as his hometown, being born in Scranton and being the senator from Delaware. I'm wondering if you can talk to me, Caitlin, about what we've learned about how Biden found out about the race. I understand that he was watching TV at home. Any other details that you've learned about Biden's day today?
Well, it appears he found out the way the rest of the country found out, which was watching television when the race was called. Our Nicole Killian has reported that an advisor says that he was watching television as the race was being called, and that's how he learned about it. He has also heard from former President Barack Obama, of course, with whom he served as vice president for 8 years. He talked with him today as well. And Biden has talked with Kamala Harris. Harris has tweeted out a video of her calling Joe Biden, being on the phone and discussing kind of this moment that they're in with the race officially called. It was Pennsylvania that put Biden over the edge for those 270 electoral votes. And that's a really significant moment for him. As you mentioned, he was born in Pennsylvania, born in Scranton, and had been heavily campaigning in Pennsylvania in the final days. Philadelphia is where his campaign was headquartered throughout the course of the campaign as well. And so it was a really significant, somewhat poetic moment for Pennsylvania to be the state that put him over the edge. And when we were in Philadelphia earlier, there were celebrations erupting all over the city, people gathering and cheering and honking for Biden. And they see him as kind of one of their own. And a couple of days before the election, he went back to his childhood home in Scranton, and he's visited there a lot, and he wrote on the wall there. And so this is kind of a moment for him, and Philadelphia, and saw in Philadelphia, really felt that moment as well.
Well, and for all the people that we're seeing outside celebrating, there are also so many people who are staying home, or as is the case there at the official Biden event, will be socially distanced within their cars. I'm wondering, I asked Bo Erickson, our campaign reporter, about this earlier, but White House spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany had said that Biden ought to tell people who are supporting him in his name and celebrating not socially distant that they ought to go home because of coronavirus. Have we heard any follow-up from the Biden campaign to that?
Not at this point, but there are those celebrations in cities across the country kind of happening organically. And we've seen this, of course, throughout the past few months, people gathering in those cases in protests. We haven't heard any sort of pathway to a concession from the president himself. He put out a statement earlier today saying that these results are not right, they're not true. So we'll wait to see what we hear also from the president's campaign. But it's important to note a couple of different things. First, when Joe Biden, his victory today is meaningful because he has won the most votes out of anyone, any president in history. This is the highest engagement that we've ever seen in terms of voter turnout. That also means that the second person to receive the most votes in history is Donald Trump himself. He was able to expand the number of votes that he got from 2016. So even though many of the states that Trump flipped in 2016 have now flipped back, talking about Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, the current president can say that he was able to expand his voter base as well. So we'll wait to see what the president says and does in the coming hours and days. But the Biden team is ready for this speech tonight. And in the statement coming from Biden, he urged a way to unite the country.
I'm wondering, we do have some sense of what Biden and Harris are going to say just from what they've set out on the campaign trail. But in particular, they are getting this news during a time when our country is really struggling, both through unemployment, the economy, and this global pandemic, as well as racial reckoning. Do you know anything more, Caitlin, about what we might expect to hear later on from either Biden and Harris on those topics?
Right. Well, they will certainly address in some way the work that is on the horizon. Remember, we'll be going into a transition period. The campaign is already underway. A COVID-19 task force is also already underway. Remember, the pandemic has been kind of a centerpiece of this campaign because they've shaped this race to be a referendum on the president's handling of the pandemic. So still very much at the forefront here, especially as we've seen cases spike across the country. And so that will be a focus in the coming days. But tonight, I think what you'll hear from the President-elect Biden is what we've been hearing from him